Darren, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
It's been a busy day, but I think I was just saying for both of us,
Yeah.
I'm pumped to have a sauna and an ice bath after this episode. It's like there's some days where, and normally Fridays are like my podcast day, and also I like punch out a heap of planning for next week.
Mm-hmm.
But today I'm just like I'm zonked, so
Yeah.
I'm really excited to sit down and have a yarn with you because last time we caught up, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago.
Had a great chat and just sort of scratched the surface on some stuff that I can learn from you, and I know a lot of people will learn from you as well. But
Great.
Overview. I could say, how'd we get here? Easy in a car and we met at coffee. But how'd we end up here today? Like, you've had a really wild ride in the military and now with the company that you run.
Yeah. It's been up and down. Very big highs and very big lows, which has been fun. It's all part of the process, I guess.
Yep.
My story, my overview is, I enlisted in the military at 27, so quite late for the majority of people who want to join infantry. And my focus was always on special forces. I just wanted to be an operator.
Yep.
Just, played Rainbow Six on Nintendo 64 and fucking that
Is that what the motivation was?
It was done. Yeah. No, look, the motivation was I had a cousin who joined the Navy and he was like a maritime engineer.
Yep.
And I was talking to him about, what he does and stuff like that, and he put the idea in my head about being a clearance diver, which is kind of like Navy special forces, I guess. They're the guys who out on patrol boats and whatever, if there's mines in the area, they kind of send these guys to do the deep dives and disarm bombs. I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. That's kind of like cool shit, and then later in life, I think there was another martial arts instructor. I was talking to him about clearance diving. He's like, no, the commandos is where you want to go. They're the guys that fucking kick the doors in. I'm just like, yeah, that sounds cool.
Kick the doors in, like Call of Duty shit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like, all right, cool. And sort of around that period in my life as well, I think I trained with a guy who was ex-SAS as well as a PT, and I was doing my own PT at the time. I was a trainer, and I've also been a musician for pretty much all my life. I've been playing drums for about 20 odd years, and there would be periods in my life where it would be sort of like focusing on music and then focusing on this military thing.
Just quickly, how do you go from because the way I see military as opposed to then music to me is like super just flow and feeling, and then military to me is like fucking regimented.
Yeah, I've actually struck a really good balance with taking the lessons from one and applying it to the other.
Yep.
So for instance, with my music, the free flow, the creativity is like, I'll just put Spotify on and I'll just practice what I know. So like my rudiments, so your basic, your left, rights and all that sort of stuff. And I'll just kind of like play, right? Yep. But then when I'm like, okay, I've got something to work on, it's like, right, I'm working on this for 15 minutes and I'm going to increase that beats per minute by 2 beats every minute or every 30 seconds. And I'm going to go until my hands cramp up, and then as soon as they do, then I'm going to stop for no more than 3 minutes and then I'm going to go back to it. So it's that disciplined, regimented kind of thing in a creative space.
Yep.
Conversely, with say exercise or something like that, or working on the business, it's like, right, I'm going to work for 2 hours. I've got an hour training session. I'm going to do this. It's like, oh, something's cramped up. I can't do that. Okay, well, what can I do? Let's just kind of think outside the box. Or I'm going to work on this. And it's like, actually, I've had this really cool alternate idea. I'm just going to like brainstorm that. Or I'm going to like close my eyes and I'm just going to touch type for like 10 minutes and just see what comes out kind of thing. So I can input that creativeness and that sort of free flow into that regimented, I have to work on a business or a training session or whatever it is. And I'm pretty lucky to have been able to be fairly successful and pretty well skilled and determined and applied in both of those realms, that I can now kind of go, all right, I'm in this realm right now, but this isn't working for me. So what can I take from here? And then vice versa, which is really cool. I'm pretty fortunate and grateful that I've somehow, looking back on it now, I'm like, oh yeah, that is pretty cool. I never really thought about that before. So.
I'm in awe of people who can sort of flick between the two. I was talking to my brother-in-law who's a musician as well last week, and we were, one of his challenges is focus, and he's like, I just struggle with that. And I'm like, well, I'm the complete opposite. I struggle to sort of flow and be free and be creative because the way I see it, and I could be completely wrong, but I was thinking, 90% of my day is structured and regimented, and I have a specific outcome I'm trying to achieve, and vice versa. 90% of his day is unstructured, it's creative, it's free flow. So when he needs to focus on something, he's only really got a little bit of muscle for doing that. He doesn't use that too often, and vice versa. For me, when I need to be free and hang out and do all that sort of stuff, it's so foreign to what I know that I get a bit anxious in those situations. So hearing what you said there, where you get to sort of flick between both and do it well, is like, for me, I'm like, it's why I'm learning the guitar at the moment, why I'm learning French, because I need to learn to let go of having an agenda behind everything and just learn to be.
There's also, with regards to, I guess, learning something new or an agenda, there has to be both elements in there. There has to be that creative free flow. You can't play a guitar or learn a guitar or an instrument or writing with stiff hands.
Oh man, I'm learning that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And same with drumming as well. Like, you can't do it. It's got to be, one of my teachers told me one time, you have to hold the stick like you're holding a bird.
Yep.
Too much and you kill it. Too little and it flies away. Right?
That's a good point.
But if I was to say to you, right, go practice your guitar, like, what would you do? Like, what's...
right now, so I've got it set out in the front. I've got notes from my teacher, but I'd go through, like, just warming the fingers up, because that's important, and then going through the, what do they call, the baritones or whatever. Anyway, the different
scales and stuff.
Scales, because prior to that, I'd always tried to teach myself and just go straight for the song. But now with all of that, it's like really learning to hear the note, and that's like a non-negotiable for me, because I want to be able to hear the note so that I can not be as rigid.
So you've got a structure already, though, don't you?
Yeah.
So you've got a structure within a creative space.
Yes.
So likewise, if I said to you, go work out, you'd be like, all right, that's the realm of rigidity, discipline. I have to achieve this. I'm doing this. Yep. But with the knowledge and experience you already have, you're like, all right, let's have some fucking fun with this. Let's get creative. So you're like, I haven't done deadlifts in a while. I'm going to do deadlifts. And what really sucks me? Farmers carries. Yeah, right. Well, yoke carries. Like, yeah, cool. Let's do some stuff like that. You know, and that's that creative flair in that rigid realm. True, So, and everyone has it. And I believe it's important to acknowledge that you already have it. It's that old saying of everything you need, you already have inside you. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah. You're looking at the difference between, I guess, training and exercise. For me, when I'm training for a specific, whether it's a Spartan race or a specific event, it's like the sessions have to be periodized. They have to be intentional. But if, I'm just trying to be healthy, I use that knowledge, as you said, experience, and just exercise and have fun with it. See if I feel like hurting that day, I'll hurt. If I don't,
that's just
so be it.
But something is better than nothing.
Exactly.
I'm trying to reinstigate the habit of playing my music at the moment, because I've been so focused on the business. And for me anyway, it's I focus. I'm like, what have I actually got to? What have I achieved today? I've got nothing tangible. This is bullshit. And then I'm like, actually, I've set up a meeting with this person. I've engaged that relationship. I finalized this, that, and the other. So I was so focused on that I've let my music kind of go, so I'm like, right. I saw an Instagram reel. This is where all great wisdom comes from these days, is people accidentally see Instagram reels and it changes their life. So the irony is we'll be doing the same thing with ours. We'll be promoting ours. People will see our reels like, oh yeah, wow, cool. Yeah.
Very,
which
very
is the
profound
point.
And inspiring.
Yeah. So I saw this Instagram reel. It was the catch cry that I got out of it was, a habit needs to be established before it can be improved.
Yes.
So I'm like, all right, how do I just establish this? Like, I'm just going to play for 5 minutes. That's it. And this guy was talking about a gym client of his where it's like, you're only allowed to go to the gym for 5 minutes. Right? That's it. You can't do anything in 5 minutes, but got him in the habit of going, of showing up. So that's all I'll do. If I've got 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, I'll just play it. No routine, just literally Spotify playlist, move my hands. Sweet, done. Establish that pattern for today.
Yep.
Next day, same time. Just kind of do that. Which has been good to just reinstigate that habit, get back into that sort of creative flow a little bit. A friend of mine told me a statistic where I think it was definitely from a book. It might have been from The Art of Impossible. You've got that on the shelf? Yeah. It's sitting on my bookshelf as well. I haven't read it, but he's told me this key piece of information where...
Summarizes the book.
100%. I don't need to read it now. Where it was, if you start your day doing an activity that is either musical and or like methodical, so for me that is both with drumming.
Yes.
That can actually set your brain
drumming up. First thing in the morning, you
literally, man,
love you.
That's what so I've just got a little practice pad, like a little bit of rubber, Gotcha. That actually sets your brain up for better productivity during the day.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. So again, I'm completely like bastardizing and butchering this
Yeah.
quote, but all I got from that was like, I do both of those things. I play drums first thing in the morning, and then apparently I'm super productive.
It would make sense though, because I feel when most people wake up, it's either they're rushing to not be late for work, or I guess for myself, I wake up and I'm very structured, right? I know what I want to achieve before I walk out the door. So having that moment where you can just, whatever happens, and be okay with that is a great way to start your day as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And it just kind of gets me in that, like, I can hit that flow state very quickly. Again, because I've been playing for over 20 years, I can just kind of like drop in. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm here now. I can just have some fun with it, you know, but I'm still very much in that kind of workspace, so to speak. So, yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
It's good
We've
stuff.
just tackled one of the biggest problems in the world right now.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody should play drums.
No,
that was
I agree. I started drums. I had a drum kit. But I just, once again, sport was my priority at that time. But as I've become older, I realized like I'm awesome at structure and everything. But I believe it's a big weakness for my connection with people, with stress that I experience, and I guess pressure that I put on myself is because I do run a tight schedule. So for me, I'm like, well, I can use that as a reason why, you know, I live a certain way, or I can just work to develop a different outlook, to learn to be more free flowing. And, you know, another thing I've been doing, which George is, you know, on a school night, I'm just like, nah, I'm in bed by 8:30, no drinking, no events, no catching up. It's just like, this is how I live. And George is like, well, your life's passing you by. Like everything that you do, it's like you get to live on the weekends, but your week's passing you by. Why don't you come out and, you know, we went to the movies the other night, then we went to the Echo the week before. And it's like he's just slowly sort of getting me out of my comfort zone for just being spontaneous.
Yeah.
And like my wife's been trying to do that for 8 years, but I'm always like, no. You should respect my decisions. But now I'm like, well, I'm getting older and it's going quick. Let's have some fun with some things.
Yeah, actually have a life. Because I mean, if you add the numbers up, you got 7 days in a week, and you're actually only living 2 of them.
Yeah. And
oh no, but I'm working 5 so that I can live. Yeah, but you're working 5 so you can live for 2. Yeah, like it's still, when you say it out loud, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're just like, how does that excite you? Like, it doesn't excite me at all.
Yeah, exactly.
But so yeah,
I was going to say that structure is important in everything as well. Because, and look, I think I'm very similar to you, which is like, if someone said, okay, you know what, you've got nothing on today, you're not structured at all, just do whatever you like. You'd be like, like that.
Yeah.
I feel anxiety already. You know,
what I feel like doing is making a plan.
Yeah, exactly. Like that will give me a sense of calm, even if that plan is for these 4 hours you're playing video games. Yeah. Okay, that's my plan.
I'm done. Yeah.
Exactly. That was the first thing I actually did when I got out of the army. Or sorry, second thing. The first thing I did on the day that I got out, or day after I got out rather, was play video games all day in my underwear. Like legit. Like the very stereotypical, like I have no life and nothing to do. I was like chip crumbs in the chest hair. Like I went all out.
Like full video games.
Committed. Yeah, exactly. But then the day after that was, I made a plan. Got out the old whiteboard and divided up into days, and jammed it full of things, half of which were, all of which were focused on just me feeling like I had a purpose, obviously. So even if it was like, okay, training in the morning, and then, by 8:30 or 9 a.m. I've had breakfast, and 9 a.m. I go sit in a cafe for an hour and I read a book. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. All the shit that I never got to do, obviously, when I was in the army. And then I'd come back at 10 a.m. and then I'd practice for an hour or whatever it was. And my day was blocked into 1, 2 or 3 hour blocks like that. And it was purely just so I had a routine, you know.
Can we talk to that? So when you left the army, you didn't know what you were going to do next. No. It was literally like the way you explained it to me, or I'll let you explain it. Like one day you're in and next day it's like...
That's it. It was a Tuesday I was in, and, handshakes and everything all around, and then went out to a little bar next to my place and took a book on sat there with a pint of beer and a book on a Tuesday night in a bar, and had a chat to the manager, and that was me. That was my army career done. And then Wednesday morning I woke up and...
How did you feel coming out of it? Was it overwhelming? Did you have any idea of what was next?
Not really. I knew that I was going to be okay. I think there's...
Where'd that come from? Like, what made you feel like you were going to be okay?
I think... just life lessons, experience, definitely some time in the army. There's a really good saying, on a poster, probably in someone's locker somewhere in the army.
Toilet cubicle.
Yeah, toilet cubicle somewhere. But it's we learn to do so much with so little.
Yep.
And it just gives you that sense of confidence of just, I'm going to be okay. That in effect is resilience as well. Yep. It's like, no matter what is thrown at me, I'm going to be okay. I had this sort of concept from when I was in my 20s. It was I called it question number one, right? So whenever you're up against a situation that's very stressful, or you're nervous or overwhelmed or whatever, you ask question number one: am I going to die? It seems ridiculous, but all fear is based out of an evolutionary biological sense of, if I don't do this, this could somehow endanger my life. Whether it's being kicked out of the tribe or the herd, fear of falling and hurting themselves, or whatever it is. It's like this could, if this went to the extreme, kill me.
Yep.
So I've left one career and I've gotten out. I have nothing to do. Am I going to die? No, I'm not going to die. I might be broke. I might have to find a different place to live because I can't afford rent, all that sort of stuff. Am I going to be homeless? Absolutely not. I'm going to be okay. And then just kind of sitting there and just being with that and letting those feelings, letting those emotions just kind of wash over me.
So as a military, and once again, this is my perception. I've never been in the military, but I picture you guys to be like the most hard-ass motherfuckers on planet Earth. That's how I feel when I'm playing Call of Duty. It's like...
Me too. That's why I play it so much. Yeah,
and respawn all the time.
Just getting some training in. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But for you to come out and then be able to just sit there with your emotions, what was that like? And how did? I feel like when you're in the military, did that not beat out of you, but like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Taught out of you, because it is so much about discipline and everything is very specific, and I think there's like a time and a place for emotions, but for you to be able to just step out and just go, this is what I need to feel.
Look, I think the military attracts a certain type of person, and it may not necessarily be the type of person that runs healing workshops in Byron Bay. With crystals, and their light is, their name is Starlight or something. You know what I mean? It attracts a certain type.
I was just thinking of The Boys then when you said Starlight.
Yeah. Conversely, I also don't think it attracts the type of person that is that stereotypical gruff, rough around the edges, chews concrete and never talks about his emotions. There was a time when that was the case. I would argue around, the World War II, Vietnam type era. That perception has also changed, and those men have grown up and grown older and changed. My uncle served in Vietnam for 13 months, and he is not that guy. He's not that never talk about your emotions. I remember sort of sidebarring a bit. When I got out of the army, I spoke to him and I said, I was a bit disappointed I never got a deployment. And before I'd even finished the word deployment, he stopped me. He's like, no, don't ever think like that. I'm like, oh, wow. He's like, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Being over in a country like that, seeing that sort of shit is not something you need to experience. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Like, so that was a very, not a sore point for him, but I read that as like, be grateful for your life, basically. And this is from a man who spent 13 months in a country seeing the absence of life or life being taken away. Coming out of the military and just being able to sort of feel those feelings. Look, it's definitely not, when I was in there, so my own experience, it's definitely not something that was spoken about, not anything that was frowned upon either. So it wasn't like, oh, hey man, I'm feeling a bit this way. Oh, shut the fuck up. There's no room for that here, fucking pussy and all that sort of stuff. And I guess there was a little bit of the jocularity with the boys, and it was kind of joked about a little bit. And maybe that's changed, but looking back on that, I didn't see it as anything that was necessarily toxic. Now that I, retrospectively, was it? Hard to say. I don't feel like it affected me all that much. The journey that I've had to being able to sit there with my feelings and all that sort of stuff maybe comes from a bit of maturity. Again, I enlisted at 27. I got out when I was 33. So I'm already 10 years older than the average infantry soldier. And then particularly now, the journey that I've had post leaving the army with all the work I've been doing, all the men's work, all the coaching, all that sort of stuff, has allowed me to be in a space where I can sit with those sorts of things and then look back on some experiences and actually make peace with them as well. Particularly my time in the army. Again, my focus was always on special forces. That's what I wanted to do. And then not achieving that and being able to go through that process, very difficult process of looking back on that, firmly placing myself in that spot and just being with it and be like, what's coming up right now, and then being able to deal with that and make peace with it, accept it, and then own it as well.
So what were some of those things you had to accept about yourself in that healing process almost?
I'm not a failure.
Yep.
That was the biggest thing. Even now when I say those words, there's a tiny part of me that's like, oh, really? You sure? So my story generally, the overview was I enlisted under a direct entry program, which every year the Army takes in about 20 civilians and they sort of fast track them through to commando selection. I'm not sure if it's changed now. This is what was happening in 2013 when I enlisted. So I was a group of about 20. And then we did basic training at Kapuka and then infantry school at Singleton. And then we went to what's called the AIT program. So it was Accelerated Infantry Training Program. It's basically an 8-week course to prepare you for selection. It was for direct entry candidates as well as anyone who was applying for selection but wasn't infantry. So there was people from the Navy, people from the Army who might have been like medics or something, and there were people from the Air Force, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I did my first selection. I came off injured after about 3 days. My knee just kind of blew out. Got posted up to a battalion later that year, reapplied for 2016 commando selection.
Yep.
And I was removed on, I think it was day 8 or day 9 of a 12 or 13 day course. So about 3 days before the end. This was literally as the rest of the group marched off to do what's called demarcation. So it's the last 3 days of no food, no sleep, where they just kind of belch you. So you've already done 8 days of getting flogged, and you've had 2 sleeps, and now it's like, right now we're going to keep you awake for 3 days and actually see what's in here, kind of thing.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that was fun, and
that was fun.
Well, I wish it was, because I was really looking forward to seeing what I was like in that space.
Yep.
Unfortunately for me, I got removed via what's called a board of studies, or a BOS. So they basically wake everyone up at like, I don't know, midnight or whatever it was. Yep. They get you all formed up and lined up. You're sitting there with all your gear ready to go, and then they read out 5 or 10 numbers, your candidate numbers. You guys step to the side, everybody else follow the PTI, and then they just very casually say, right, you've all been removed from the course via board of studies. Here's your room. You can lay up here for the night, and we'll see you out here out front with all your gear at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And that's that. And you're just kind of left there like, what the fuck just happened to me? Like, this dream that I've had has been like snatched away from me again 2 times in a row.
How do you deal with that? Like, first time the injury, like what makes you want to come back, and what was the head like after that?
The first time was very traumatic because I had spent probably about 13 years of my life building myself into what I thought I needed to be for that job, you know, which, in a way was a blessing because it got me to the point where I was accepted onto selection.
Yep.
It gave me that resilience. I had this stereotypical cliche image in my mind of that hard-ass, door-kicking son of a bitch, you know, fucking do anything. I'm like, cool, this is what that guy does for training. It's like, oh, I'm sore, I'm tired. Get the fuck out there, you know. So that held me in good stead, albeit an extreme version of that, right? But that became my identity. That's who I thought I needed to be. During basic training and in infantry school and then the AIT program, I definitely wasn't that person. I thought I might have been, but I really wasn't, because I was very much intimidated by all the people around me. You know, I was a guy who was older than most, was, you know, punching on against career soldiers, people who'd already been to Afghan and Iraq. They'd come back, they'd already had, you know, 3-4 deployments, and they're like, yeah, now I'm going to go for special forces. And here's me, 27, still wet behind the fucking ears and been in the green for 10 months, being like, yeah, I want to be there as well. You know, and not that I ever got any downwards looks from them, but I think it was me going, I'm not right with these people here. Who's this? You know, so I think that sort of resilience was brought about by this cliche image of what I thought I needed to be. Once I failed my first selection, and that's what it was. I can call it whatever I like. I can massage the words. I can make it more user friendly. But effectively, it was a failure.
User friendly, I like.
Yeah. I can make it like, no, you didn't fail. You just, you know, you were injured and your circumstance. No, I fucking failed it. And I'm okay with that, you know. Yeah, because that was like 13 years of my life to build myself to the point where I thought I would be the right person for the job.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't. And then that's it. It's done. It's over, you know. So reassessing my life in that point was like, well, I still want to do this. Like, yeah, fucking absolutely. I didn't even make it past day 3. Of course, I want to see what I'm like in the dark places, you know. So then going back to, or getting posted up to the battalion, that was actually, in a sense, really hard because I was told within a couple of weeks, hey, you're not actually able to reapply for about 2.5 years because of the work cycle of the battalion. They had exercises. They had to be on what's called like the ready cycle. So basically, if shit kicked off and they needed to be deployed short notice, they were the ones that had to be ready, and therefore they weren't allowed to let guys go for selection or anything because they needed a full manning. So that was really tough, seeing like, yeah, this dream that you've had that you've just come off of, and I'm like ready to go again. And they're just like, yeah, 2.5 years. And I saw that as not being where I wanted to be. And I think looking back at it now, I closed myself off from learning a lot of really good experiences because I felt that I was better than it. Yeah, and that's actually the first time I've said that out loud, to be honest with you. I felt like, no, I'm only here for special forces. So regular army, I'll just kind of be here and I'll bide my time and I'll do what I need to do until I can reapply. The fallacy with that was I missed out on a whole lot of good learning from a whole lot of great soldiers, which would have put me in even better stead for my second go at selection. But that was my journey. You know, I wasn't arrogant about it, but in here, that was what was going on.
Yeah. And do you think it's interesting when you think, I think about that. I was the same with sport. And when I was like dropped from teams or playing back here and everything like that, I was like, I'm just biding my time waiting for the next selection or the new contract or certain things like that. And once again, I wasn't arrogant about it, but in my head I was like, nah. And I think about the exact same thing you just mentioned, the opportunities that I missed to develop. And I could have learned so many skills from so many incredible people, but I had my head up my ass. But I also think, is that part of being so competitive and having this burning desire to be the best?
Yeah, look, you've got to be laser focused to a point. You have to almost be focused to the point of obsession. You know, and when it was the 6-month prep period to train for selection, because they give you a 26-week program. It's a periodized 6-month training program that will get you ready from 0 to hero to be able to get on the course and survive it. Because that's what it is. It's, make no mistake about it, it's a survival. You know, we always had a joke, which was about a week or 2 out from the end of selection. It's like only 2 more sleeps, you know. It's kind of what it was. But there was a time to be focused, but then there was a time where it was like, okay, well, right now I don't need to switch that focus on. So let's see what other opportunities I can get. And yeah, like you said, I had my head up my ass a little bit, which was just like, no, I'm only here for this one reason. You know, I'm better than all these guys. Again, I was a bit older. I was a bit more mature. You know, I didn't really fit into the young kids kind of game. So yeah, consequently, I missed out on a lot of really good opportunities.
So knowing what you know now, how would you deal with the setbacks?
The same setbacks, like in terms of, so if I was this person now going back there, well, I think realistically, and this might sound very arrogant, but if I was the person I am now, but back then, I might have actually passed selection. I think I would have. Why do
you think that is?
I would have been in a better stead, in a headspace, not from necessarily a knowledge point of view, but from an experience point of view, and just being more accepting of who I am. And more confident in myself, self-belief. You know.
So you believe that's an important part to success, is self-belief?
Absolutely. Yeah, and not the I'm fit enough, I can do this. But just a genuine. You almost have to go backwards to go forwards. It's almost like you know what, I believe in myself. I can do this. I believe I'm worthy. But then that acceptance of, and if it doesn't work out, then that's okay. You know, because if you're like, if this doesn't work out, I am nothing, which is what I thought for a long, long time. And even up until maybe, a year ago, it didn't work out. So therefore I'm just the guy that failed selection, And
why do you think we view ourselves in that light when we don't get what we don't achieve what we are working towards? Why do you feel our default response is, poor me, I'm not good enough. Why do you believe that is?
I think we attach our identity to something. We attach something that is intangible to something that is tangible. You know, so if you don't make it into that sporting team or you don't make it into a past selection or get that job, or, you know, it becomes who you are, who you want to be. And it's absolutely not. Obviously it was, and I've spoken about this with several guys who are still currently in or ex special forces. And the biggest thing they always tell me was like, mate, it's a job. Like, it's a job. It's a cool job, you know, but it's not like, hey, in order to be the pinnacle of what masculinity and a real man is, you have to wear a sandy beret and be in the SAS. You know, that's absolutely not the case. But when you're in the army, that's seen as the top job, particularly for infantry soldiers. And don't get me wrong, there are a vast number of soldiers who have no desire to be in special forces. But it is a progression. It's not a requirement, but it is definitely like, okay, hey, if you want to take your soldiering to the next level, this is where you have the opportunity to get to, you know, just like if you were a doctor and then you become like a specialist, or, you know, you're a surgeon, then all of a sudden you're on a research panel, like whatever it is, it's that next kind of step. And I think people go for those goals, and then it might not work out. And there might even be a part of them that they tell themselves, yeah, I am that person. And then when it doesn't work out, it's, oh shit, actually I'm not that person, you know, and they forget about where they are and how far they've already come. You know, they're just focused on this one thing.
Going back to that self-acceptance part. That you
if I don't make it, then I'm still good. I'm still me, you know.
Did you find when you went back for another crack, you took with you, and I guess, more pressure on yourself to make it through this time than you did the first time through?
Oh, really? I actually felt less pressure, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
I felt like I'd already been in the realm of selection, so I've kind of like the big and scary has kind of been taken away. You know, which was interesting because I felt that right up until selection actually kicked off on day one. Then I'm like, oh no, there it is. There's the big and scary and the yelling and the guys with the fucking Terminator shades and you know, all that sort of shit. You know, I didn't feel like there was less pressure to perform. There was definitely an overwhelming sense of curiosity. Like, okay, let's anything past day 3 and it's all profit. I'm good, you know. And I was just I couldn't wait to get to like the last 3 days where it was like, this is the fucking home stretch, you know, one more sleep till the end of selection kind of thing, you know. But the irony is I did the same thing I did when I was in the infantry battalion, which was like I just kind of paid off a lot of the different little tests that they were doing. You know, all these little tests, all the, okay, yeah, look around in this field and show me tell me how many targets you can see. And I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's like, are you sure? You've got another 2 minutes to keep looking. I'm like, no, I'm good. There's only 6. Fail. There was like 12. You know, I was so, and like it's a beautiful metaphor for exactly the mindset that I had when I was in the infantry battalion. No, I'm so focused on just this. You know, and it's actually there's all of this.
It's your peripherals.
Yeah, just look around. You know, everything you need is right here in front of you. So, yeah, and it was right up until the point where I got removed, that it was like, oh shit, yeah, I could have done a lot better and all that sort of stuff if only I'd like slowed down and had a look around, you know. So yeah, there was definitely less pressure, more curiosity.
Any of those training, like the training's the same. For example, you could speak to someone who's been through it before and they can sort of tell you what to look out for and prepare for. And I know you said you had that 26-week training program, but is that
in terms of the actual selection courses?
Yeah.
No, they're different from year to year.
Yeah,
so
cool.
The commando selection course, when I was doing it, I think it was about 14 days. So it was about 2 weeks, and the selection course for SASR was 21 days. Now, from memory, chatting to a mate recently, I think he said they've changed the commando selection now to about 18 days. Okay. But to my knowledge, SASR has always been 21 days, and I think for as long as I've ever known. So it's a long time, but they divide it into stages. The first week is just cutting away the dead wood, just you know, getting flogged in PT sessions and 1,200 push-ups in an hour or fucking whatever it is. The middle section is navigation. So it's like sometimes you don't see a human soul for like 4 days. You know, it's literally just here, go to this point. It's like 6 Ks away, and then radio in and tell me the checkpoint number that you've reached, and hopefully it's the right one, kind of thing. And then the last obviously 4 days is on SASR selection. They call it Lucky Dip, and that's the whole. That's where they say selection really starts. It's because
Far out.
like you've been flogged up to this point, and now all that other stuff that was there has been cut away. Your fitness is gone. Your fitness is gone after a week. Now it's like, all right, let's see what your character is, because they want to see your character. And I think that's becoming more apparent in the world today and in business particularly as well. I know Simon Sinek speaks greatly about this. Some guys who I know from the Mill Gym over in Perth say that and say, yeah, we have a physical stand, but also we're interested in character. If you're not the right person for the job, we don't give a fuck how fit you are. That's very much a mantra of special forces. And yes, the chat that Simon Sinek, again, Instagram Reels, somebody's probably seen it already, where he speaks to the Navy SEALs and he looks at trust versus skill. He does this like matrix, and it can be summarized by the saying character over competence.
Yep.
I'd rather somebody have a good character and a medium level of competence, because competence you can train, but if they've got a shitty character, doesn't matter how good they are. Arrogance without substance just makes you a fuckwit. But arrogance with substance still makes you a fuckwit. Moral, don't be a fuckwit.
Yeah.
Can we swear on here?
Yes, mate, I'm all for it. Every episode's got the explicit E next to it.
Yeah, nice. Excellent.
I'm a trooper for that.
Yeah, sweet.
But then when you think about like the competence and what was the other word you were
saying? Character over competence.
Sorry, character. I feel it's such an important thing, and you went away 2 weeks ago or whatever it was on that training.
Oh, the cadre camp.
Yeah, the cadre camp.
Yeah.
And put yourself in an uncomfortable position, and that's helping you, I believe, build character. Because I think for me, based off the influence that I had at certain points and what I believed about myself, my character was completely different. And once again, it was all about me and trying to prove myself and be famous and all of this sort of stuff. And then I put myself in a lot of I chose to learn from the humbling experiences, and I continue to seek them out now. Like I always am finding a way to challenge myself, whether it's physically through 10K runs or 12-hour challenges or whatever it is. I want to be challenged because there's continuous lessons that I can learn. Why is it important for you to seek out discomfort like you did let's say a fortnight ago?
Yeah. For me, it's about it's a test, isn't it?
Yep.
So I liken it to like a weight training program. So if you do an 8-week strength cycle, you do, you test at the start, or you may not. You may just launch straight into the cycle, and then after 8 weeks, you're like, all right, let's see how much this work has paid off.
Yep.
Yeah, let's push this to the limit, literally the 1 rep max, and see how this training cycle has worked for me. So going to do the cadre camp was very much like that. It's like I'm 4 years out from my last selection, 3 years out from Army. And probably about, it was around about October last year, I think I did my first real sort of like men's work retreat.
Yep.
Let's see how all of these lessons, all of these learnings, all of these fucking ups and downs and coming back from all that sort of stuff has paid off.
Yep.
Let's see what I've learned. But I had to pressure test that. I had to battle test it. It wasn't enough just for me to be like, yeah, cool, I'm running a business now, and all this work that I've done has made me resilient every time someone, doesn't respond to an email. It's like, no, let's take it to the extreme. Let's be awake for 36 hours. Let's do the same activity with a bunch of people who are getting more tired and more fatigued and more hungry. Let's really like dive in there, and I'm all for that. I want to know, because the sooner you get to that dark place, the sooner you can kind of kick around, see what's in there, recover, and then be like, all right, when we took it to the extreme, this is the thing that came up. So now when we're all cozy and warm and the sun's out, now we can work on that in a
more controlled
environment. I was going to say safe space, but in a more controlled environment, we can train that. Again, you do your 1RM when it's like, all right, it's fucking dirty. It's like I'm jacked up on pre-workout. There's chalk all over. My hands are already bleeding. Shins are fucked. Yeah, cool. All right, let's just like somebody slap me and fucking get into this. But then on a Monday when it's like, right, it's 5x5 deadlift at 70% or whatever. It's controlled. You're like, right, I've slept well, I've eaten well, I've done all this sort of stuff. It was a really cool Rich Froning quote, which is, well, maybe it was him. Who knows these days with the internet?
Yeah, it's just...
It was a quote from someone that was attached to a picture of Rich Froning. And he said, training is where you listen to your body. Competition is where you tell your body to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
You know,
it's probably Ben Berger on that. Yeah,
whoever it was. Yeah. Mate, it could have been Elmo, you know. But that's the thing, you know, like I've done all this training, I've done all this work.
Yep.
Now it's time to see if it's become muscle memory.
Yep.
You know, again, a lot of adrenal stress training with martial arts or combatives or pistol drills, you know, weapon drills that we always used to do. You know, you do the drill so slowly, you know, perfectly controlled, and then you do it a little bit faster, and then you put live rounds and you've actually got to shoot. Oh, okay, when I do this under speed, it goes off a bit. All right, let's go back to that step a little bit. And then, and look, I never knew this because I was never in combat, I was never deployed. But then when you need it, it's there.
Yep.
You know, straight away, it's like, cool. I'm really thankful for that 30,000 reps that I did under controlled environment. Now that my brain and my neurochemistry and my pathways are just like, this is just what you do. We're just sending this impulse faster, you know. So yeah, I really wanted to battle test my personality. You know, the fitness selection was not about fitness. If you're fit enough to be on the course and pass the barrier tests, you're fit enough to finish selection. So for me, it was about, let's go into that dark place where you've been awake for 30 hours and you still know you've got half a day left. And let's see what your personality does. Let's see when everyone throws their hands up in the air and says, I'm fucked, I physically can't do this anymore. Or we've just got an impossible task. Like, nah, you failed that, start again, but add on 20 kilos or whatever it is.
Yep.
How I go. And I was fairly confident going into it, being like, you know, I'm going to really try and like rally the troops and just be like, all right, sip of water. I guess we're cracking on. This is just me now. It's that immediate acceptance, you know. There were some people that didn't handle that sort of too well, and I felt it was my role to kind of shift those people back in line, you know, with a, come on, man, you've got to do this. Like, you're here for the team now. Like, this is not just about you. This is about all of us, and we need your help. And that stuff came out as well. So I was pretty proud of myself with how I conducted myself. And the staff gave me really good feedback about that as well. So it was important for me to really dive into that space.
Yep.
Yeah.
So some of the things you took away from that, I guess, being under pressure was like leadership skills, communication. Were there any moments where you sort of had to step aside and refocus and gather your own thoughts? Or were you just on?
Yeah. Look, it's hard to be on for 36 hours.
Yep.
There was one moment where I feel like I kind of, look, it's a very small blip, but I would consider it as a bit of a, not lost my cool, but I kind of stepped outside that really centered kind of version of myself.
Yep.
One of the guys was he was the tasked with being the team leader for the exercise. This was the last exercise. We had to carry a big tire, and we had a metal pole through it. And this tire took 3 like grown men to even get off the ground and flip. So we're not fucking around with the tire here, heavy. Right? And there was a metal pole through it, and there were 4 of us, and we had to like lift this tire off the ground, and we had to just keep following this truck. And we were just doing laps around this compound. I reckon we were doing it for a solid 2 hours, right? And the team leader...
Do people complain, like, or just...
I think they were just too tired to speak, to be honest. Like, yeah, complaining was not really part of it. I didn't notice any complaining. But this team leader guy was he's saying, look, I just, you know, I'm fried. I can't help out, guys. And we were just like, oh, okay, no worries. And there were 4 of us and him. And I was fortunate enough to have another army guy as well. And we just looked at each other like, all right, let's just crack on. This is just us. This is what we're doing. Eventually, the team leader helped, and we had a different idea. He was like, okay, we're going to go to here. And we're like, no, we want to push to this next point, and then we'll give ourselves a bit more of a break. And he did what we call pull rank. And he's just gone, no, hang on. I'm the team leader. This is what we're going to do. So I just dropped the tire. I looked him square in the eye, and I've just gone, well, we would love for you to lead. And he just kind of sat there. I was just like, listen, mate, we appreciate that you're tired, but we've all been going for 34 hours, right?
Yeah.
We're the ones with the plan now. This is how we're working, and it's working really well. So if you want to lead, step up and lead. If you don't, get out the way. And that was the only time where I kind of felt like I went off center, because I sort of felt like, oh, shit, if the DS had seen that, if the directing staff had seen that, might have been a bit of a, yeah, this guy kind of lost his cool.
Why do you think that? Oh, yeah, so because you lost your cool.
Character over competence, you know. But I spoke to a good mate of mine who was one of the DS a few days later. And he's like, nah, we would have actually considered that a really good sort of firm not a challenge, but like okay, mate, well, if you want to do this, then this is what we need from you.
Yep.
But that was the only moment where I feel like I sort of, I could have done better in that.
Yep.
I wasn't my best self there.
What do you think are important traits in leadership then? So when you say to old bud, step up and lead, like what are your expectations around leadership?
Look, there's the man in charge and there's a leader.
Yep.
And I see this in businesses all the time. There's the person who runs the show or a manager, and then there's a leader. And often those two things are not the same. I see it in sporting teams as well. And this is something that I do with the business, with Section, where, we will go to a sporting team and we'll say, right, who's your leadership group? Oh, it's, Jono, Smithy, and Robbo. I don't know, because that's just football teams, right?
Yeah.
And I say, great, based on what? Oh, well, they've just been around the longest. So, well, they're the leaders. We'll put you through a session and you guys stand around the outside as the coaching staff and we'll show you who the leaders are. So, which generally doesn't sit very well, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
There's the person who's running the show, the managerial type, and then there's the one who looks after everyone around them. And this, leadership and teamwork go hand in hand.
Yep.
Again, Simon Sinek, wrote that book, Leaders Eat Last.
Yep.
They make sure everybody is sorted. They make sure everybody is on board with the mission. The more engagement they have with producing a plan as well, the more emotional attachment to it, the better the rate of success, because everybody's invested in it. So there's demanding respect and there's commanding respect as well. Demanding is you do this because I'm the boss, or you're going to do this, as opposed to this is what we're going to do. Some of the best leaders that I've had, whether they've been the officer in charge, the OC of my company, or the battalion leaders, have been the ones that have come out and they've just been real with the guys. Had one leader when I first got to the battalion, he was the OC, and he's like, right, we've got to do this exercise and this mission because this is what it's about, where it's all about, strength of the unit, and it's, this, that, and the other. And we're all sitting there like, no, this is horse shit. Like, we're doing this because we've been told to do it and it serves no purpose, but, you're just trying to get us excited about it. And we don't need to be excited about it. We just need to do it. We've had other leaders who've come out and we're just like, righto, boys, this is going to be shit. So I'm going to try and shield you from as much of that shit as I can.
Yep.
What I need from you, though, is effort when I ask you to give effort. It's not going to be 100% of the time, but when I need it from you, I need you all to step up. We're like, you know what? Yeah, this guy actually fucking gets it, and he gets us. He understands us, and he's taken the time to be like, the boys are not going to like this. I don't need to convince them of this. I just need to ask for their cooperation to work for the team. And it's leading that team from the front. It has to be relatable. There has to be enough of a separation as well between the leader not being one of the boys, but also not being in the ivory tower, so much so that there's a chain of command of 17 people just before you can say good morning,
Hey.
Yeah. It's like, what the fuck are you doing talking to that person? I'm just saying g'day. It's like, no, there's a process. All right, cool, man. Like, whatever.
That's madness that exists.
It is, absolutely. And it's not, again, it's not just the military. It certainly wasn't my experience. I had that with, some of the leaders were, you had to salute them fucking everywhere you go. And look, that's a pretty standard protocol. You do that. But then there were some other guys who, like the commanding officer of our battalion, a guy called Jim Hunter, who anyone listening to this from 6RAR, from my era will know the legend of Jim Hunter. He was one of the greatest leaders that battalion's ever had. He would walk from, his office was at the back of battalion HQ. He'd walk from the back to the front and he'd take coffee orders. Jim, do you want a brew? Sally, do you want a brew? Yeah, cool, no worries, guys. No, my round, whatever.
Yeah.
And he'd walk out, come back with fucking 2 trays of coffees in the morning. Like, he was the guy who was in charge of 600 odd men responsible for potentially deploying overseas. And he's buying his stuff a fucking brew. And yet there were other leaders where as soon as they walked into battalion HQ, everybody had to stand up, stand fast. Morning, sir, how you going? Yep, cool, rest. And that was that.
Yep.
Knock on the door 3 times if you wanted to say good morning otherwise. And that was it. So there's that difference between, people who you have to follow versus people who you want to follow as well. Every man, woman and dog in that battalion would have followed some of those leaders into hell and back purely because of the character that they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to find out your character. Do you believe? Like, this is once again why I love physical exercise, as I was saying, because it can expose who you really are. And if you don't like that, if you don't like how you're reacting in certain situations and you want to respond better, get in the fucking thick of it again, and then work out, as you said, when the sun's out and you're nice and warm, what do you need to improve on? How's that going to add value to life, and how will it improve the outcome next time? A lot of people stay so I look at a lot of society now, and it's just like we aren't ever faced with adversity. If it's hot, we turn the aircon on. If it's cold, we turn the heater on.
Well, hang on, I'm turning the aircon on. I'm keeping that bad boy on 24 hours a day in summer, mate. This is Queensland. Pump the brakes. But I see what you're saying.
It's like whenever there is discomfort coming our way, there's a way around it.
There's a solution.
Yep. And it's like fair play, like enjoy it and make yourself comfortable. However, majority of people aren't where they want to be at life. Majority of people aren't as mentally healthy as they know they want to be, aren't as fulfilled as they want to be. So you're not going to get that by continuing to seek all these comfortable situations, because it's only going to show you what you know.
Their frame of reference is very small.
Yep.
You know, my frame of reference, or sorry, not just me, but people who put themselves through that regular discomfort, that resilience, that, you know, pain, that fear, whatever it is, their frame of reference becomes very large, you know, so it's like, oh, okay, shit, it's raining today. I don't want to go out. I don't want to go to do a run.
Yep.
You know, it's like, man, I've literally slept in a fucking creek line.
A run in the rain is nice.
And rained
is it fresh water?
On. Yeah. You know, it's like I can handle a little bit of free hydration for my skin.
Yeah.
You know,
makes my hair curl, but that's it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but yeah, there's a comfort crisis. Also, the name of a book, I believe, on the perpetually growing reading list that I have. So if I had all of the time in the world and all of the money, I'd just sit down and read all day. Wouldn't we all, though?
Yeah, well, exactly.
But yeah, no, there's a plague of comfort that is just sweeping through this time in history where there's a solution for anything. You know, this is the age of accessibility. I wrote an essay about this actually in my last uni degree, which is the age of accessibility. You know, we can sit on our couch and get food, sex, and entertainment literally from our phone. All we need to do is unlock the door and it will literally come to us.
Soon Google Home will do that for us.
Exactly. All we need to do is like, hey, Alexa, send over Tinder date number 3. Or, you know what I mean? We've got Uber Eats, we've got Netflix, and we've got dating apps, or, you know, literally anything. And
as a result of that, we're losing skills like communication, the ability,
100%.
like even just respecting ourselves, people, perseverance. Like as a result, it's just like, I always say played Tinder, but I've never used.
It's all a game.
The dating apps. But it's like most people are booking a date and they're still swiping right and trying to find the next one. It's like you haven't even been on that first date you've just organised. You don't know what that person's like. How are you going to give your full self to that person? If you know you've got 10 other dates lined up, it doesn't make sense. There's no commitment anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lack of vulnerability. There's a lack of ability to be able to actually find out the right things that you want to know about that person. And I think, that comes back to the individual not knowing who they are. They don't know who they are in certain circumstances. They don't know who they are in times of crisis, in times of discomfort, times of happiness, what they feel, how they think, all that sort of stuff. So they're just kind of there going through the motions. You know, look, I haven't played Tinder in a long, long time as well.
When you say played out there.
It is. It's a game. I've been very fortunate to find the right people just by kind of, I feel, just attracting them in my life. Not just partners, but like good people in my tribe. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, like it's the sad thing is now is, as a man anyway, I speak for myself, walking up to someone in a bar or on the street or at a gym or whatever and being like, and actually just having a conversation like, hey, I just noticed you. I'd just like to come up and have a chat. Like that scene is so weird and almost stalkerish, creepy, and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, this is how it was done. Like
even 10 years ago,
not so long ago.
That's how I met Amy. It was like, had to go.
What do you mean you just talked, you fucking weirdo? Like,
where's the slide into the DMs and stuff?
Exactly.
I was like, it's crazy, and I think a lot of the mental health challenges, not mental illness, but mental health challenges, are as a result of not having to develop these skills.
Communication skills. And this is sorry to cut you off.
No, you're all good.
This is something that is ever present, particularly for, obviously I can only speak to men's mental health as well. Yep. So a little bit of a backstory. A guy I know and was friends with while I was in the army took his own life a little while ago, probably about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And that really rocked the entire battalion. You know, there were guys who hadn't been at the battalion for years coming back and you know, going to this funeral. The entire, 600-700 man battalion came to this man's funeral. And it's because of this communication problem. We don't know how to speak. You know, we know how to speak.
We use words.
Yep. But we don't know how to communicate.
Yep.
You know, and there's a fear around it. And again, I'm not likening this just to the army. I can't speak to the entire army, obviously. But there is definitely a lack of ability in being able to communicate to other people and simultaneously be vulnerable, expose the not so pretty sides of yourself. You know, what do you see on Tinder? You don't see the just woke up in the morning photo.
Yeah.
Or you see the hashtag woke up like this photo, which is the hashtag I prepared for 30 minutes and got 300 photos and chose the best one. Yeah. But yeah, that ability to just be like, hey, I'm not doing so great. I'm actually having a pretty shit time.
Yep.
You know, the irony in that is that if anyone actually did that to someone that they know, that other person would literally drop fucking everything.
Yeah.
And be like, what do you need? Or it's like, you know what? I've got like a work document in one arm and a kid in the other.
Yep.
I can call you in 15 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, don't drop the kid.
Yeah. I was actually going to say put the kid down. You can talk while doing paperwork. But yeah, there's that inability because it hasn't been practiced. And again, it flows back into that, you know, we can get everything we want from not having to talk using one thumb, sitting on our couch doing nothing.
That's why I think, you know, especially with Are You OK Day, it just gets blasted every that specific day for the year. But going back to people don't have the skills to haven't developed the skills to communicate on that day. People go, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. Or I'm bad. It's like, okay, well, that's extremely vague. You see what's happening when people put vague things on social media. There's no context around it, so people fucking either rally behind it and give it their own meaning, or they fucking cancel someone because, once again, they've given it their own meaning.
Yeah.
My idea is like, okay, well, this is not my idea, this is my belief, is that if you want to like really understand someone, ask better questions. Like, what does a bad day mean to you?
For me,
what are you feeling? And,
sorry.
No, but don't.
Were you asking the question?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So a bad day for me is just feeling like totally unsupported.
Yep.
You know, I went through a really, look, it was my version of a rough trot with DVA. There are other people who've had, you know, their own rough trot, which is, you know, not as bad. And there's other people who had it so much worse. But for me, it was, you know, it was a rough trot with DVA and just feeling like there's one organization that was there to support me post-army. Just didn't give a fuck. You know, I was case file number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was black ink on white paper. That's all I was. So a bad day is like feeling just completely abandoned.
Yeah.
You know, it taps into that one of 3 primal fears, which is, you know, loud noises being dropped and abandonment.
Yep.
You know, I was completely cast aside. So a bad day for me is just feeling like there is fucking no one around me and the world is just fucking on top of me.
Thanks for sharing that. And the cool thing is, well, once again, what I believe is like now you've been able to feel heard, hopefully, because you've been like, okay, now I can actually express what a bad day means to me, or whatever vague word people give. I might be fucking, you know, a guy called me out at the pub just after I'd met Amy, and this is when I was terrible at communication. He asked me, I can't remember the specific question, but I just remember saying, it's fucking fucked. And this gentleman goes, what does that mean? Can you use some real big words? And I was pissed off at him because I was like,
what do you mean? It's like there's regular fucked and there's fucking fucked. How hard? Yeah.
It's simple. But then that's when I started thinking, okay, well, I do need to learn to explain myself better, which means in order for me to explain myself better, I have to really think about what I feel is going on in my head. So improving self-awareness, game-changing, because when you're aware, you can fix it. Secondly, it now gives whoever I'm communicating with a better understanding. Okay, abandonment. I feel abandoned. You know, what makes you feel like you're abandoned in your life? What about, you know, this support network, that support network? And you can start piecing it together. But when you're vague or once again, if you want to be on the flip side and help and serve people, ask better questions to get them thinking, and don't accept I don't know, because everyone knows. They're just being fucking lazy when they say I don't know.
They're just paying it off.
Yeah. It's like, get very specific with your questioning. And, you know, I look at it when you're goal setting, it's like, if you can get very specific, you can make it tangible. You can track it. If you get specific with your communication, you can really understand people, and you can work towards creating solutions or moving towards solutions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, look, everybody's in it for a solution. If someone was,
100%.
yeah, it's like no one person would be like, yeah, I feel shit. Do you want a solution? Nah.
No, I'm happy
I
here.
just want to fucking sit in the pit right here now for a little bit. It's like, it's bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, being self-aware of how you feel and being able to articulate that, even if it's just kind of fumble your way through a conversation, but having someone there with you asking the right questions is vital. But if you don't speak up in the first place, then, you know, then it's just like, well, fucking, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You know, I had a chat with a friend of mine recently about this, and this friend of mine, I'm sure we can put a link up somewhere, but she's running 160 Ks to raise awareness and money for men's mental health. So it's 100 miles. So not so long ago, she ran 100 Ks around Brisbane, just like a 20
Did she do that with another bloke? Or?
Yeah, Nadine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Nadine Ralston. So she's running 100 miles this time, just because fucking
that's
apparently I do
impressive.
36-hour camps. She runs 100 miles. Like, fuck, each to their own.
Yeah.
We all got to go into the dark place somehow, you know. But I did a reel for her, and I was having a chat about just that sort of experience of mental health for men, particularly in the army, because that's my experience, my exposure. And this was not so long, it's probably about 3 or 4 days after the funeral for this mate of mine. His name was Nikolai Hellebro as well. I feel like I want to honor him and his memory as well. So just after Nick's funeral, you know, and we're at the boozer. The mood had sort of lightened a little bit. Yep. Everyone was having a few drinks, catching up. And I remember speaking to one of the guys, and he was chatting to me. I'm like, oh, how's things? He's like, oh, look, not great, man. I've had this problem with my ex, and this problem with my kids, and then the work here, and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh man, that really sucks. I'm really sorry you're going through that. And we sort of chatted a bit more, and then at the end, I'm just like, I want to dig a little deeper, man. Like, how are you really going? Like, how you really doing?
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, oh yeah, pretty shit, hey, yeah. And like, that was that. And I'm like, oh, fuck, man, I'm sorry to hear that, hey. He's like, it's all right, it's a bit fucked, but fuck, yeah, whatever. What do you do, right? Yeah, it's, hey, look, mate's over here. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, this guy, like, I just gave him an opportunity. Sorry, I'll put it back on me. I tried to ask the right question, push a little deeper, and his default response, through no fault of his own, was to dive deeper in a shallow way, if that makes sense. He's like, no, things are really fucked. They're fucking fucked, right? But it's just how it is, right? You know. And that's such a common thing that I've noticed, particularly in the army, in the military, because you'll be out on an exercise, you'll be sitting in a hole waiting for an enemy you know is not going to come, because that's just part of the training exercise, getting fucking rained on, up to your knees in water, and you just turn to your mate, like, it's fucked, eh? Yeah, it's pretty fucked. And like, that's all you can do about it. So it's just that acceptance. As opposed to actually, and look, that's a different scenario from a man having problems with his, custody with his kid and his ex-wife and whatever, going, actually, I'm not doing so great. But because that stuff with the, hey, I'm actually really having a bad time, is not practiced in every day, then we lose the ability to communicate about that, And I think something I mentioned in my chat with Nadine as well was, so many men, from my experience, and I went through this for so long, was that our pain is not worthy. It's that old adage of like, but there's starving children in Africa, or there's people that have been through worse things with DVA, or, I failed selection 3 times, but this guy failed at 4, he came off with a broken leg, or he went over there and he got injured in Afghanistan, or whatever it is. So like, there's everybody else above me that have had worse circumstances. So I'm just going to keep my fucking mouth shut. And that's just not the case. Your pain is worthy, and it has to be. It has to be in order for you to heal that. You have to acknowledge that pain and go, you know what? Irrespective of how much other people are suffering, I am also suffering as well. And you need to put your hand up or reach out to someone and be like, you know what? I'm having a bit of a shit time.
Yeah.
It's absolutely necessary. It's vital that it happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well said. Very well said.
Thank you.
What is we'll get one more in. So what's some characteristics or traits for you that are important as being a man?
Wow.
Going deep.
So fucking let's get in there. Characteristics or trait that are important being a man. Fuck, what does that even mean? What's a real man?
Yeah.
I think tribe. And I think that's just part of the human condition. But I think men need to have brothers. You know, not being afraid of their masculinity. You know, being okay with that separation between masculine and feminine. You know, so it's like, yeah, I do want to go out with the boys. Does that mean chase tail, get shit-faced, start fights, all that sort of stuff? Absolutely not. It just means that I want the company of some men.
Yep.
You know, and that is 100% okay. And being able to acknowledge that and being okay with your own masculinity is important.
Yep.
And I think every man has to be a leader. They have to be a leader of their own life first. And understanding that balance between the masculine and feminine as well, that polarity. You know, there have to be those things that men are, look, I use the term lightly for want of a better word, like better at, you know, and there are going to be things that females are better at. And there has to be that balance, but understanding who you are as a man, your masculine traits, and the strengths that you bring to that relationship or in your life in general with masculine and feminine, understanding that is key. Yeah.
There's a great book, The Way of the Superior Man, that talks a lot about that. It's a fantastic book. And where can people find out more about SCTN and the workshops and events and all that sort of stuff you run?
So a section is on Instagram.
So I keep saying sentient whenever
we're a sentient being. Yeah.
Mate, literally for the last 3 days, everyone I've been talking to about you, I'm like, sentient. Like,
Yeah, cool. So you're going to go back and have all those conversations again, but with the right stuff, because otherwise they're going to invest in some like tech company called Sentient or something.
Hopefully they've just listened to this and they're auto-corrected.
Yeah, hopefully. Otherwise Skynet's going live because of everything that you've said, So section is on Instagram and Facebook. We have page is, if you type in SCTN, which is section, it's at part of the section on Instagram as well. So the next event we have running is in October, and that is going to be at a gym in West End. I'm going to confirm that date today, and hopefully you can pop that up.
And that's Brisbane West End for
West End, and that'll be a 2.5, potentially even a 3-hour realistic military experience based on Special Forces selection courses. So if you want to see the less friendly, more yelly version of Daz and in camp pants, then come along. It's always a big draw card, in camp pants.
Mate, appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Good to be here. Cheers.